with Jim Hall and Penske, and it was I did a lot of the engines in it. This is kind of where I really blossomed a little bit working on this stuff, and they allowed me to do it. A little less than 2,000 pounds. This has been this is really a lot of work they've done to this thing. It's all tissue thin. The doors are just, you got to watch them how you close them and stuff like that. It wasn't really successful because it was such, it didn't have it had a lot of teething problems, and but it did do good. At Nassau, it really did good there, and in Sebring it finished both years, and we broke this axle in '64, and we had to go out in the Corvette corral, and there was a Corvette out there, and we pulled the axle out and put it back in there and finished the race. Then we had to go back and put the axle back in so the guy could go back home with it. But he was gracious. He had a good used up axle, I'll tell you that. But it's the lightest one of all 5. And as each car was built, they were going to initially build 125. And the 5th car, which was this car, the body was lighter, and the reason why is these flares were built on the car out of the mold. The other ones they put them on, and they were heavier, and the glass was a little heavier on the other 4. But anyway, and what they did is they started narrowing the car up, and they laid the windshield back a little more. They rolled this a little bit more into the body where it come across, give it a little more down. See, you notice they don't have back spoilers on this thing back in the day, so they were real tight about, downforce. And they had lift, of course, ungodly lift on the front. I asked Jim Hall when we were at Mee Island, when we had all 5 together, I mentioned him down the back straight at 200 miles an hour, and he could lock the wheels side to side. And he just laughed. He says, "I just hope it didn't cough, or I've been crazy. I've been wrecked."
Bill, how big is it?
What's that?
Comparison to a standard.
It's 7/8 scale.
Thank you.
What was funny is when they wrecked the other ones, they tried to put a fender on it. It looked like Fido trying to get it to fit. It wouldn't. It was just all different.
But the chassis, Bill, the chassis is
all tubular.
Nothing like a C2.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's all tubular chassis, and it's thin wall. I asked Zora why they went big, but they went thin wall, so the lightness of it, but they got the strength back by making it bigger around. And it goes, actually, the frame comes right through the floorboard, and when you drive it, you put both feet in and the frame is up. That's how come it's lowered down quite a bit.
Bill, how come the engine looks like it's sitting over?
It does. It's like the L88. They got it from this, or they got this from that,
It's actually offset.
Yeah, it is. It's offset. And
The other interesting thing, if you notice, that the door handles are actually set in to try and get a little bit more aerodynamics. They're also, the door handles are like mid-50s Chevy pickup truck, but they're aluminum. The interesting thing, one day I was talking with Bill, and he had it over at Stingray Chevrolet, and he shows me a key, a little GM key, and it says GS5 on it. And I'm sitting here, who the hell puts a lock in a race car? And it would lock the door.
yeah, it'll lock up. But this is this is a 377 all aluminum motor. Now The long endurance races, they run the steel motor, but the short runs, they run the aluminum motor. And that's just the way they run it.
Bill, did they ever build another small block out of aluminum before the LS, of course, but in the small block, did they ever, other than the lightweights, did they build that aluminum small block motor ever again?
They did a mock-up one in '59, but it didn't live, it didn't do much.
Was that aluminum or magnesium? 'Cause
Aluminum.
Okay. I saw one.
And you can see the GM camera in it, and I have the footage, some of the footage off of that camera I got at GM. And Bill, remember that? Got the tech sticker still on the dash.
Yep. I remember when I first met you, you first bought this car, I noticed that. That was, what, 79, give or take? Something like that, 78? It's still there. I wish I
Bill, you need to tell them about the water and why those toggle switches are up under there.
Oh, yeah. In 64 and 65, but they had a monsoon. You know, the Florida has a monsoon. You better hang up. But anyway, long story short, it rained so bad it don't have no rubber in here to keep the water out of the car, and it just went. So what they were doing when they go around down the hairpin, they open the door and the water come out of the door. But what it did is started shorting out the switches in the middle of for the lights and the side lights and all. So they come in and did a pit stop and put the switches and stuff on top of the dash, and a lady had some fingernail polish and they put it on the dash to tell what switch was what. So I just left that. Actually, I never even touched the dash. It's just all original.
Before duct tape.
Yeah. With magic markers.
That went around either then, yep.
But this is really unique. This is kind of a conjunction of all this aero stuff here, and it's all designed. I looked at some of the prints on this. It actually comes across here and it feeds air into these side drafts in here, and it kind of throws cold air into them side drafts, and it helped the engine a whole bunch. Also, this car has air jacks. That's real unique. Saved the time on this car. The air jacks, and then we put a quart of oil every time it come in, if it needed or not.
Was this the only one that had that, or was the first one that had that?
No, this was the first one, then they did it to the #1 car, you know. But actually, these air jacks, I had to go get them. They were actually on 2 Indy cars that Penske had, so I found them and I put them back in here because the mounts fit the air jacks, and I'd had to find air jacks that way they wouldn't have fitted. But I found them, and Bill Scott, the fellow that the name on it, Bill Scott right here, he found them for me, you know.
How about the gas filler too, Beth?
Oh, this is neat. I'm glad you're kind of getting it. Now, Jim Hall was an engineer at, he was good, a mechanical engineer too. So he went out in Texas and went to the Air Force Base or something out there and watched how they fueled the airplanes. So he got an idea of getting a 55-gallon drum, putting it up on a stand, and had this thing. And he bought this for the head to go in it that fit in it perfect. He could fuel this thing quicker in 4 tires than they could on that 396 or the 36-gallon tank, because when you fill it, it all splued back. He could fill it and also have a lap on him with 55-gallon fuel in this thing. 54 gallons it holds.
Show the vent, Bill. Vent.
Oh yeah, a little vent right here. But how unique that just that little thing saves so much time to get out and had the idea of just little things back in the day, you know.
How about the chassis, Bill? Do you mind lifting the rear to show them the chassis?
Yeah, I'll show you, yeah. There's Bill's key. He tried to steal it, I was gonna kill him. See how it locks it, see? This is neat here too. There's a story about this. You'll like this. In 58, at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, they were going with them three-prong knockoffs. Well, they were coming off and they were wiring them,
Right.
and they were still loose. So Proto in 58 went and made every hammer for every entry in the 500. And they're serial numbered, and they have Indianapolis on it. They are absolutely, I mean, they're a ton. But what happened was, you could hit these. They're designed. This is all aluminum, and a lot of engineering design was aluminum and all. And they kept it loose, so when it hit it, it didn't hit it. It had a
Kinda
kind
took
of
some of the
less
shock,
rigidity
right.
to break the ear off. You know, they had. I mean, engineers only pick up on this. You know what I mean? But I want to tell you, then that went on for years and years. Parnelli, he swore by these, and. But I managed to get two of them. I got one for that car and one for this car. Well, I think I got one for that too, I finally. But, you know, little stories like this maybe save somebody's life at Indy. You understand? If the wheels were coming off and that was killing them.
Yeah.
You know? But I have to commend Proto. They actually spent their own money and went down there and give them all them hammers, you know, and never written up about nothing about it, no nothing. They never told what it really happened. And I went down with the engineers and talked to him about this, you know, years back. I found out who I went and they drew it up, and then I seen the name on the thing and I found him. And you know what he did when I did? He actually started tearing up with me. Yeah, he really was emotional. He says, nobody ever caught that. You know? Yeah. But,
Very neat.
But the thing, you know, little things like this of owning a car, and then you learn about it.
He's gonna open the trunk, I don't know.
Ah, this is where all the secrets is.
Yeah, I know. There's your spare tire.
Spare tire goes in, I don't have it in it. But,
I was kidding.
yeah.
Here, come on around.
You see the two pumps back, that's the fuel pumps for the engines. And then you can see the air jack. If you want to come and look at it, it sits way up front. Only has 3 of them, and it worked really well.
A big heavy air.
Do you ever take it out for vintage races or anything?
Yeah. If anybody running the damn thing, they'd be dead. I'd shoot the damn thing. They can't drive a wheelbarrow, some of them.
I know.
Listen to her laughing. She must have drove a wheelbarrow.
Yeah, I watched a fella with 2 Cobras, and he was pretty darn careful with them.
You know, I went to Sebring down there. I did the Winston Cup cars later. And I went and looked at them, looked at the guys. They smelled and everything, you know, like they just come out of a bathtub. I says, these damn fools gonna get a damn erecting. I said, when they come across that start-finish line, and that is a left-hander right at the end of the start-finish line.
Right.
And you're doing 125 or so, and it's left hand off camber, and the Winston car is 3,600 pounds. I says it's gonna pile up 6 to 8. I was right, 10 of them. And 3 of them were totally, clips, everything.
Well, it narrows down to one, almost 2 car widths.
Oh, you drove Sebring before?
Worked there quite often, yes.
Yeah. But I said, look at this. I was right for once. And you know what? They don't understand. Them cars were history. Some of them cars can be replaced, and they just gas pedal blues down through there. But I looked at them. I had binoculars, and their eyes got like this, started big. When they got big, it was too late, all but the three.
Working turn one down there can be quite exciting.
You know, the one that I always have had, and I talked to Hall and every one of them, you know, all the good drivers, that turn 17, you know, goes down the start finish line. I have never figured it out. And I tried, and Donahue and I worked on it. There's a way to get around it, but it's so long.
Right.
And if you don't get a good shot down the start finish line, it kills your whole lap.
Well, I'm going to be working on it September 3rd.
Are you going down there?
Yes, sir.
What do you drive?
Grand Sport 2013.
Oh, okay.
Electric edition.
Man, don't skin the wall because
I'm trying not to.
when you get into it, you kind of have to, what I do is, when you kind of have to have a four-wheel drift, it'll literally, you know, it'll keep sliding with you. And you could turn the wheel and it has no effect in it. Once you slide, you just keep nailing it and finally hope you don't go into the wall.
All right.
But you got to allow for wear factor in how hot the tire gets too.
Right.
So that'll throw you off coming down to. See, you're doing 180, 190 down that back 2 mile stretch.
Well, I don't think I'll get quite that fast. But
Well, I mean, you might be one of them nervy guys want to skin it up a little bit.
I'll post my video on YouTube after.
But anyway,
Not if you're insured.
this is really special for Corvette right here, this car. And matter of fact, me and him went to Road Atlanta. Me and Doug too. Doug was, and they unveiled this car. Doug, you might throw a little bit of what we did up there and tell them a little bit what happened. And I want you to tell them what happened about the picture. I'm going to go get something to drink and I'll be right back.
It's kind of funny because Hendrix had a car up there. We had Grand Sport, we had the original Grand Sport, and we had this one. And what they were doing was introducing the new Grand Sports. It was the introduction that was done in the Atlanta Motor Speed Park. So they had all the riders, all the magazines, Road and Track, and everybody come in. And they were introduced to the car, given a little presentation, and then taken down to the track. Oliver Gavin was there doing hot laps with them, and they got to drive Grand Sport by themselves. But it really was amazing because up on the upper floor, we had this and 4 other Grand Sports. And every rider that came in, they'd come in about groups of about 30 to 40 people. And for 5 days in a row, and as soon as they walked through the door and saw this car, boom. They never even looked at any of the other cars. They spent all the time chewing asking me questions, asking Bill questions, asking Walter questions. They were more interested in this car than any of the newer ones. And some of them would go and they'd have to send somebody upstairs to get them so they'd go down and drive the new cars. Because they were still out on this and go around. Keith was there, he knew what happened.
Yeah, they the day before I got there on the rotation, this car, they put it out on the track with the 2017 Grand Sport Collector's Edition. So they're like this. But it had just rained. And if you know anything about auto photography, a lot of times if you look at like the pavement and stuff or asphalt, it's always wet because it just shows better. So they'll wet it down, they'll wet the track down. So it did it naturally because they had the storm, but then the storm passed, and so they put those cars out there. And it's a photo that was used in the release, and if you can find it easily. But in the background, here's the 2 cars. They're sitting like this on the track, and in the background, it's sunny out, but in the background is this thunderstorm. It's dark. It's not like down here it gets, you know. And just a really neat picture, and a great way to show the heritage of the old and the new. And Bill was telling me that he actually took this car to Las Vegas for the introduction of the '96 Grand Sport as well. So he's done 2 of them.
And it was a lot of fun. We had probably more fun up there than we've ever had in any of the visits with people and meeting all the riders. But they had more questions about this car than anything else. And it really is kind of funny because if you look, the reason why I asked Phil about the size of the car It's Ed Wilburn, who's the styling guy. And by the way, when Ed was here, he said there's 7 ideas on the SR2 over there that didn't come out from GM until the C7s come out, taken right off of this car. The air dams, the air, and all the design things did not come out until the C7. But Ed was standing in front of this, and these cars were in a different position. The green, the L88 was down here, and you could see Ed going over and look down and look like this, and they'd walk around the other side, and then he'd walk back there. And finally, I could watch him, and I knew he had a question. He said, "Bill, come here." He said, "That car's smaller than that car." And he was the only one I've ever seen that came in that had the eyes to really determine that this is just 7/8 scale. When you open up the engine, and if you look at it carefully, you see that the engine is offset to make up for the driver's weight as opposed to keep the balance. Why they did it. And when you look at the louvers, you can see that the engine is offset. These 2 cars are absolutely amazing with the history of the Corvette. If you know anything about the history, you're looking at all the ideas for the C7 right there, and a lot of the engine work was developed in this. And remember how many years ago that they were done. So it either puts a black eye on GM engineers, or their new engineers, they couldn't come up with anything that was any better than that, which is amazing.
Bill mentioned a difference when you're looking at these cars. This is mostly a stock body C2. Look at, when you're at the front, look at the windshield and compare the shape of the windshield. This is what Bill was talking about earlier. Compare the shape of the windshield of this car to that car, and then when you're behind it, look at all the differences in the back glass. They're shaped very differently, and you can see that.
Hey, Chevrolet wouldn't cheat.
Yeah. How many horsepower is that?
It's just like, that looks like a pitot tube, but it's the air vent for the gas tank. And the gas tank's down there, but let's see.
He did, well, he was good.
That let him fill it quicker. So the story in this car is amazing. I feel very privileged to have Bill as a friend and get to hang around it and help him up with some of the trips. It's really made my life very, very good.
It's not about the cars, folks, it's about the people that kind of surround you and kind of help you along on all this. I mean, the cars are just a precedent of getting the people together. The thing that it's been a wonderful walk for me is, you know, the people overseas had, from McLaren here, I mean, you cannot even write about who's been here. But the thing is, when they walk through that door, they're just as regular. You wouldn't even know that they own this and that or anything. You know, I want to say something. They're all the guys from McLaren love this car so much, so they come over. They actually fly into Tampa and come over and spend a day just to come here. But we go to Buddy Freddy's, and I'll call over there and I'll stem a bunch of strawberries. So they get, they look like a strawberry when they go back because they just fly out into strawberry shortcake. But the thing I want to say is, they said, when I would come over and jack the car up and look underneath, because you know, like Smokey said, the underside tells what the top needs with aerodynamics. So I jack it way up high, you know, and here's 4 big old bellies up under it, and they're all looking and they're writing things down. And I says, I cannot believe that they'll go back in a suit and enjoy this, you know. But they're just regular people, you know.
Here's Ed Wilbur, who was head of styling at General Motors.
He just retired this year.
He just retired, but all you got to do is look at the smile on that guy's face when he's sitting in the SR2, and you can see how much fun he had. I mean, you can't get, I'm taking this up to him, I'm on bait him when I go up for the Dream Cruise next week. But if you look at that, you can just tell from the smile on his face that he had so much fun. And by the way, he's only one of two people I think knows let's sit in the SRT. So, but see it, everybody see it? You guys see
Yeah,
it?
big old
Yeah. I mean, he's just smiling, and that was just a natural picture.
You know,
It wasn't
well,
shot or-
when he's dropped down, we lost a guy that's a patron that loves the old. He's the one that kept that Heritage Center going. And I worked 25, 30 years on that center up there, doing the engines and all. And he's the backbone of it all right there. And, but anyway, let me get on this NASCAR stuff now.